Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I will be talking about Trine 4 The Nightmare Prince. I have finally finished all of the Trine games, and for those of you who are keeping track, they have not jived with me very well up to this point. So, is Trine 4 the game that finally brings this series up from the depths of despair? Actually, yes, Trine 4 is pretty good, I think. They seem to have learned a lot of lessons, especially from Trine 3. It looks like they didn't really like the 3D gameplay from Trine 3, so we are back to 2D gameplay, and I'm not too upset about it. I did like the 3D gameplay of Trine 3 and a couple other functions from it, but it's probably best that we just go back to our Trine 1 and 2 roots. So each character functions pretty much how you would expect up to this point if you've played the previous Trine games. I'd say the most interesting character would probably still to this point be Amadeus the Wizard. In the previous games, you would have to draw the shapes in order to conjure them up, and then in Trine 3 they mapped it just to one button press, but he could only conjure one item at a time. In this one, you unlock the ability to do up to 3 objects at once, which I think is a pretty good balance. If you go back to Trine 1, where you could have like 9 objects all at once, things got a little cluttered and difficult to work with. So 3 works, and then it is still to the press of a button rather than having to draw the shapes, which is a very welcome change compared to the first 2 Trine games. It just feels like the gravity mechanics in this game are a lot more polished and smooth. As a whole, I feel like I was just fighting the first 3 games game engine almost. It was just so clunky. The gravity just felt off, and it just felt like I was brute forcing my way through these puzzles in the first 3 games. But in this game, it just has a lot more polish. I'm not quite sure how else to describe it. It just feels like everything is intuitive, the controls are smooth. I'm just not fighting it. So when I am building stuff using Amadeus, it doesn't feel frustrating. It feels very intentional. The only other type of series that I could possibly reference this to is the Lego games, if you ever played those, where I've only really played the Lego Harry Potter games, but you can use the Wingardium Leviosa spell to build objects, and it always felt nice in that game, and that's exactly how it feels here. It just feels like the levitation of objects and the creating of objects is a lot more well thought out here. The other 2 heroes of the Trine would be Pontius the Knight. He is basically your combat fighter as usual. He has most of his past controls from his past games. And then you have Zoya the Thief, and she has her rope hooking mechanics that was introduced in the Trine 3 game. She also has frost arrows and flame arrows, which I feel like they utilize a lot more in this game compared to Trine 3. Amadeus also has the ability to slam objects down into the ground. They brought this function in Trine 3, and I always really liked it. I felt like it made him pretty viable in combat as a ranged fighter. I would pretty much use Pontius the Knight or Amadeus the Wizard during combat. Zoya, I felt, didn't do enough damage with her arrows, although she was pretty nice while trying to solve puzzles, especially when you finally unlock her fairy rope. This basically makes objects not follow the rules of the gravity and start floating up into the air. There's a lot better of a story here as well. There are cinematics in between each level. It's nothing that blows my socks off or it's not like BioShock Infinite or anything like that, but at least it is a story enough to keep me engaged, and it actually finishes. If you have watched my Trine 3 video, you'll know that the Trine 3 story just cuts off right at the middle. You're trying to basically repair the Trine in Trine 3, but you're only halfway done before the game ends with no DLC in sight. In this one, I felt like we all just kind of rode off the events of Trine 3. It is its own story. I guess we completed the Trine from Trine 3 all off screen. You don't have to worry about that. We have an entirely new story. The story of Trine 4 is basically there's a prince, and he is not in control of his magical abilities. Basically, he can bring out the nightmares of any living thing around you, and he was basically a prisoner in the Wizards Academy, but he broke out, and so now he is causing a ruckus everywhere, and so the heroes are tasked with retrieving the prince and bringing him back under the wizard's care so he can have more control over his nightmarish magic. Visually, it is just stunning. If I had any compliment for any of the Trine games, it would be its world aesthetics and visuals. Very medieval fantasy, lots of fairies and magic everywhere. It's exactly what you would expect with this type of genre, but it is done so well, and this is the best of the best looking game. You could tell that they put a lot of work into it. The character models themselves still don't look amazing, but at least it's not really pixely like the first 3 games. It is just a gorgeous game. The backgrounds and the foregrounds are so full of life and unique things to look at. It is just so fun. It's like a painting almost. I'm tempted to compare it to Rayman Legends as far as world aesthetic goes. I like the level select here. It's a lot better than in Trine 3, where you wandered around through the world and you would need to acquire a certain amount of these collectibles in order to progress through levels. This one is just a basic gold level select, kind of like Mario, but it shines in its simplicity. I really like the aesthetic too. The world map kind of looks like it was drawn in by pen. It's almost like you're looking at a map of 100-acre woods, that kind of aesthetic, that kind of design. And I like the character models in the level select as well. It's like these 2D images. They look really charming. They went back to collecting XP in order to unlock certain abilities that will help you with puzzles and combat. This was similar to Trine 1 and 2, but they gave you all your abilities straight off the bat in Trine 3. I think I do like the collecting the XP to unlock abilities. You still have abilities unlocked throughout the game, and then you can build upon that by gathering up XP, if that makes any sense. So let's see. Let me give an example. Pontius the Knight, he has the ability to create a shield in addition to when he's also holding up his shield. So you can have 2 shields at once. This is nifty for puzzles, but through gathering up XP, you unlock the ability to make your extra shield magnetized, so then Amadeus's objects can attach to it and become magnetized themselves. There's a lot of examples like that. Let's see, Zoya the Thief, she can unlock an ability through gathering up XP that makes it so she doesn't have to charge up her bow. She can just immediately use it after using a roll. It just gives you more incentive to go out and collect all of these resources compared to Trine 3, where you just aren't allowed to progress if you don't collect these. You actually get rewarded for collecting them, and I think it was wise to bring this mechanic back from Trine 1 and 2. The XP is hidden throughout the levels with varying difficulties, which was nice. You have your easy ones that are just go on the path and you'll collect them. They'll show you which platforms to hop on. There's some medium ones that take a little bit of work to get to, and then there's some more difficult secluded puzzles that you will have to solve in order to get this XP. But the puzzles themselves are just really fun to do. I felt like in the first 3 games, like I said, you would just brute force your way through the puzzles. It didn't feel nice. And these ones, they felt really thought out. And there was a couple head scratchers, but if you sit and think it through and utilize all of the characters' abilities, you feel really smart when you solve these puzzles. There's also a couple of other collectibles besides the XP to gather. I never really understood what these do. Some of them vary from letters to our characters. Some of them are pieces of a globe or artifacts. I couldn't really understand what they do, and I tried looking it up and I couldn't really find a good answer. So I think it's just something to shoot for, a little extra thing for completionists. This game is really kind for completionists as well. They will tell you which XPs you're missing on which part of each level. They'll tell you where the collectibles are that you're missing when you hover over it on your collectibles screen. It's just really convenient to let you know what you need and where if you are trying to 100% complete this game. The combat takes a little more thought and is more engaging as well compared to the first 3 games. In the first 3 games, I would simply resort to Pontius the Knight and I would just button mash his sword swing. But in this one, it takes a little more thought, because when in the first 3 games, when you would attack an enemy, they would not attack back because you are attacking them. In this one, they will. So you have to actually utilize your jumps and your blocks to avoid the enemy attacks. Also, they add in a couple of interesting things, like you can't attack this enemy until you destroy this other ranged enemy. Their souls are linked or whatever. And like I mentioned, just utilizing Amadeus's object slam was really nice to use against the enemies that were far away and hard to reach as Pontius the Knight. Basically, combat, you go into an area and then these dream, nightmarish platforms will appear and it'll seclude you into this room with these enemies, and it won't let you progress until you defeat the enemies. And I felt like this worked for the most part. One complaint is it does feel a little cramped in these rooms, especially near the end of the game when they would introduce lots of enemies all at once with all of these platforms. It's just hard getting around to the enemies that you have to kill first. Other than that though, I feel like the combat in this game is far superior to the first 3 Trine games. I really don't think you need to play through the first 3 games before you play this one. Sometimes they will reference a couple of things from the previous games, like the old character models or maybe some of their past adventures, but it's really just one-off lines as our 3 heroes interact with each other. The story itself is its own secluded story you can just hop in and Trine for, and you know, I actually kind of recommend you do that. You can probably skip the first 3 Trine games if you're not too interested in the gameplay aesthetic. I'd say that's the only real reason to go back to the other 3. I was curious what the general reception of the first 3 Trine games were, so I was kind of looking up a couple forums, and it seems like the general consensus is people do like the first 2 Trine games, but we all are just trying to forget Trine 3. That was just a mess. Although I do see a couple of things that they built upon in Trine 3 in this game. Yeah, but you can probably just hop into Trine 4 and be happy with your Trine experience. Yeah, this is the best Trine game. I think I will give it a 4 out of 5 actually. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but Trine 4 is probably the best Trine experience you can have. And I feel like all of the Trines really lend themselves to multiplayer. So if you have a buddy to play this game with, or 2 is even better, give it a shot. I feel like you might still be stepping on each other's toes here in these closed quarters playing as 3 characters. I'm not really sure how that would work, especially with XP and leveling up, because you all do share the same XP. So I'm not sure how that works, but I feel like playing these games multiplayer is definitely the way to go. Well guys, that's it for me and my Trine collection experience. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments about Trine 4 or any of the other Trine, and I'd be happy to talk to you about them. That should be it for me though. I'll talk to you later. Bye!